Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I'm just gonna go through a very brief wrap up of what I read throughout the week in case you guys didn't watch all of my vlogs or any of my vlogs. I just wanted to show you the 7 books that I read for BookTubeAthon. So yes, I did actually end up reading all 7 books for all of the reading challenges. It was very exciting. I was quite proud of myself. So the first book that I got to was Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomny Sun. This is the first book that I completed, and it was for the read the same book while wearing the same hat challenge, that one. I figured because this is mostly pictures and like very small graphic novel-y type things, that this would be very simple to get through in one sitting, so I just popped on a hat, went outside. If you guys watched the vlog, you saw the goats bother me the entire time that I was reading this, but I literally read this in probably half an hour, and I was not prepared for the amount of emotions that I felt in this. This was possibly the most like wholesome and emotional and grammatically infuriating book that I've ever read. It's purposely like misspelled words and like incomplete sentences just because it's an alien coming to Earth to learn about humans and how they are. And he ends up talking to a whole bunch of like earthen residents, like animals, trees, and basically gets like the rundown of how like emotions work, how like creativity and life works, and it breaks it down in like literally one-page panels with maybe a sentence on it, and you want to cry. It was so good. I loved it so much. If you need like a pick-me-up or kind of a bring-me-down, this kind of did both. It was like very heart-wrenching, but also like wholesome while you're reading it. So if you're looking for like an emotional roller coaster, check this out. It's a very quick, endearing read. Next book that I completed was The Call by Peter O'Gillen. This is a book that's been sitting on my shelf for far too long, and I finally got around to reading it for the book with green on the cover, because there's green everywhere. And I don't know why I waited so long to read this. I loved this. If you're into very dark and disturbing Irish fairy tale type stories, this is gonna be your book. I knew that it was going to be dark. This is a horror story, and I knew that going into it, but I didn't really know much beyond the basic premise, where it follows basically kids and teenagers set in Ireland after like this thing happened, and there are fairies who can call you at any time, randomly, more than once, and you get sucked into the fae world or fairy world, and they basically murder you. And within 3 minutes and 4 seconds, if you don't come back, you're not coming back, or if your body does come back, it's probably dead. It's not really doing the synopsis justice, but it was a ride. I read this in practically one sitting. It was intense, it was heart-pounding. I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I can't wait to get to the sequel. I think I'm gonna save the sequel for like October because this is definitely a really good spooky Halloween type story. So this was the second book completed. The third book that I finished was Love and Luck by Jenna Evans Welsh. This is kind of like a sequel-y, companion-y type novel to Love and Gelato. They don't like necessarily coincide, but it follows like the friend of the main character from Love and Gelato. This was possibly my biggest disappointment of the readathon because I really wanted to like this. Much like The Call, I love reading books in an Irish setting. I want to go to Ireland. That's the challenge that this was for. It was to read a book about something you want to do. I want to go to Ireland really badly. And in this book, our main character goes to Ireland, and it fell flat for me. I feel like Love and Gelato had a very complete YA contemporary book feel. It may have been stereotypical, but I think it was well written and well told. This read more like a novella to me. I believe I ended up only giving this like 3 stars. I might honestly lower it to 2 just because it was like a disappointment to me. It didn't feel complete. It felt like I was in the very beginning of the story for the whole story. Like I feel like I didn't fully understand who all the characters were. And it's one of those books you're not really supposed to know what's going on. You're supposed to like just go along on this wild ride with her. But for me, it didn't quite have that like magical, like, yeah, I'll go along with you on this ride element that a lot of other stories do. This one just made me feel kind of like outside of it and lost and like, why are you doing these things? Unfortunately, this was my kind of letdown of the whole readathon. And if it was only one book, I consider that a good readathon. The fourth book that I read was my favorite book of the readathon, and that is What to Say Next by Julie Buxbaum. This was the most pleasant surprise of a story I've read in such a long time. I expected this to be a summery, fluffy, contemporary read based on the cover. There's 2 neon colored cups on a lovely turquoise background. It looks pleasant. This was not at all that. It was so much better than that. But this is following 2 perspectives. We are following David, who is autistic and very high functioning, goes to high school, but definitely acknowledges his issues that he has with other people and just kind of like in social situations. He's aware of it, but it's not like life-altering for him. And it follows Kit, who is a girl who goes to this high school, and prior to this book starting, her father died in a car accident, and she's not dealing with the grief in a very healthy manner. And they become friends, and their relationship kind of helps both of them along the way. It was touching, it was eye-opening, it was very like educational as far as like the autism spectrum goes, and like really getting into the head of somebody who has autism. It was fascinating. I adored it. I gave it 5 stars. Prepare for me to talk about this, but this was technically like the first book that I started for the readathon, so this was the challenge for Let a Coin Flip Decide Your First Read. It decided this one. It was a good choice. The 4th book that I completed was Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. I finally got around to reading this. I know everyone already read and talked about this like 2 years ago on BookTube, but I finally got it and I finally read it and now I understand what people are talking about. This technically was like my 7th book read, as in like challenge number 7 to read 7 books. This was like my extra book and I loved it. I really don't know what to say that hasn't already been said about this. It was really entertaining. It had a lot of awesome elements. It had a really awesome female protagonist who was like really badass. It pushed the lines of like villains, like it followed a villain story, which are like my favorite types of stories. I loved it. The art style is gorgeous. I love the color palettes and as they changed per scene, I loved it. So this is technically like book 5 completed, but the 7th book challenged. You know what I'm talking about. The next book that I have to talk about was my book-to-movie adaptation, where you read the book, you watch the movie. I try and use this as a time of the year to read a classic because generally there are a lot of classics that were turned into movies, even if they're modern classics, and in my case I use that for Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. This is so good. I don't know why I waited so long to read this. I love circus stories. I love stories that are based around like animal care. And that's what this is. I thought it was amazing. I gave it 4 stars. I gave the movie like, I don't rate movies, but I would give it 5 stars. It was one of the best adaptations I have ever seen. It was almost scene for scene from the book. Like the only thing that got altered was they kind of made the ending happen a little bit faster, which is understandable because the ending in the book kind of drug on a little bit longer than I think it should have, like what I think they would have gotten away with. So they shortened the ending like a teeny tiny bit to make it like more plausible, which I appreciate, but other than that, it literally happened scene for scene from the book. It was amazing. They did an awesome job with it. I'm so glad that this is what I chose this year because I love both the book and the movie. And the last book was the book with a beautiful spine, and for that, I read Zero Repeat Forever by G.S. Prendergast because just it's a lovely, lovely looking spine. There we go, now you can see it. This was an impulse read for me because I just cover bought this. That's literally what I did. I always picked it up in a store when I saw it because it's a gorgeous cover. I love it. It has like the dandelion on there. I just love the aesthetic of this cover. I never read the synopsis of it. I ended up getting it off Book Outlet finally because I had picked it up so many times that I was like, okay, you should just own it just in case. So I use this readathon as an excuse to read it because, hello, that's a beautiful spine. I am so glad that I did because this book is amazing. I think this is one of those hidden gem books that I don't understand why it's not more talked about or more read. The synopsis on Goodreads I think is a fairly good description where it says the 5th wave meets Beauty and the Beast. And I don't really like comparing books to other books like that, but this is what I wanted the 5th wave to be. I liked the 5th wave, but I think the story just kind of like went downhill. Like he came up with a really cool concept and then didn't know how to follow through with it. This is a really cool concept and it followed through. Granted, this is only book 1, but it went further in the storyline, if you know what I'm talking about. I loved this. This is following 2 characters. So it's following a girl who is in a world where aliens have invaded and basically the world has kind of ended. She is secluded because she was a camp counselor when this whole catastrophe happened, so she doesn't really know what's happening in the outside world. Except that people are dying. You can see like viral videos that are still getting uploaded to the internet of like these crazy aliens called the Nox just murdering people left and right. So she is an awesome badass female protagonist who just like takes names. She's awesome. I loved reading from her perspective. And the other perspective that we read from is from Eighth, who is one of the aliens who is invading Earth, and his perspective was so eye-opening to me. The reason this is compared to Beauty and the Beast is because the tale starts to go that way. Like, I'm not going to give spoilers. Obviously, our two main characters' paths are going to cross, and that's kind of where the Beauty and the Beast story takes place, but it's not. It's not fluffy, it's not romantic. It's pretty brutal, to be honest. But that part of it reminded me of Hunted by Megan Spooner, where his voice as like the beast is like, it's primal, it's confused of what's happening, he doesn't really have like a human voice in it. It was so well done. I loved his voice. He is my new cinnamon roll. I want nothing bad to happen to him. He is way too precious for this world, and he needs to be protected at all costs. I just adore him so much. So his storyline is pretty much why I love this. So we get like a badass female protagonist as our one main character, which I will always read from, and then we get this like fragile identity of a person who is just, I want more people to read this book, okay? It's very slow, and I think that's why I didn't get the hype, because the story moves very slowly, but I think it moved at a pace where you learn the characters' voices really well, so you learn like what's really happening to them and why they're reacting the way they are. I loved it. I loved it so much. Why is there not a sequel out of this? This came out last year. There's not even like a sequel really in the works. I know she's writing it, but there's like no title. There's nothing on Goodreads. There's no cover. I'm losing it. I want the sequel to this so badly. So these are the 7 books that I read for BookTubeAthon. I think this is the very first readathon that I ever actually did a TBR video, and I read all of the books that were in my TBR video. Like, I didn't stray from the path. I read all 7 of them, and I am so proud of myself for that. Like, I'm gonna get a little emotional. I'm so proud of myself. But I think it was a fairly good reading experience. It actually got me to read books that probably would have sat on my shelf for a very long time. So I'm very glad that I pushed myself to read these books, because this one probably wouldn't have happened for quite some time or ever. And now it's like one of my favorite books. So there's that. So this is it for my wrap up. I hope you guys have enjoyed the BookTubeAthon experience along with me. If you watch my vlogs, thank you for watching them. They were super fun, but man, is it exhausting to film that much every single day and edit every single day. So I'm kind of glad that that's over. The pressure is off. I can read whatever I want now. I've already read 4 books since BookTubeAthon. I know. It's a thing. I read a lot. So that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. I hope you guys had a really successful BookTubeAthon. Let me know down in the comments what you ended up reading. Did you complete all 7 books? Or what challenges did you complete? Because I'm curious. I'd like to see what other people are doing. There was a lot of people participating this year based on like the Twitter sprints and all the like entries. There's a lot of people doing it this year, so that was pretty cool. So that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.